and they just sweep it under the rug. True story. Guys, someone's asking me a question that far away. My old man ears can't hear, so please.
You have to like read and like pick out the stuff that's important. Or
Yes, I'll help you there. I got your back, though. It's either chapter 6 or 7, section 2, though. I don't know. It's the Enlightenment. Someone told me 7. I was like, I don't think it is. It's 6. But, so like I said, I'm expanding upon this quite a bit, so just an FYI. You know those words I gave you? Here's more!
Yes! That's right.
Here's the thing is, guys, listen, if you have those words set aside somewhere else, you don't have to flip to it and add them there. Just write them in your notes yourself. Just know these words. No. These are not. So write them down. Get them definitions. Go get her, Ray. Who knows the movie? Who knows it? Who knows it? Who knows it?
I'm just kidding. I know them. Sorry.
Aww. Go get her, Ray. What's the movie?
The Blind Side. Hold on, what did you say?
Go get her. Go get her, Ray. No. It's a game.
Stingray.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, my parents would be like so unproud of me right now.
Is that a thing? Unproud? It sounds like some Alice in Wonderland stuff right there. It's like unbirthday, it's unpride. Yeah. All the lights? One of the lights? That one?
In the light.
That's a bit much. That's a bit much. Ladies. Now it's awkward. Let's move on. These are not adding on to the list of words you have for the week. This is just, you need to know them as we go through the section. That's what I said a minute ago.
So do we need to write these down?
You need to know these, but you do not have to add them onto like a list. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we don't need to like write them down.
I'm not going to say. Yeah. I'm hesitant to say no, don't write them down, because then people are like, no, you do need to know them. So write them down, but there's no specific order. How about that? Yes, ma'am. Back row.
Are you related to Mud?
Probably. Here's the problem with the Mud family. Most historians don't even know where it comes from. There's 3 philosophies right now. One is that it comes from northern France, specifically the area of Normandy. The other is that it originates from Ireland. A third is that it originates from Italy, from Monte Alto. That's because it came through Germany, yes. Mouse.
My last name.
Oh, it's German, yes.
Yeah.
No, like, you can not
You'll just... That's what you sound like. Moving on. So fast.
I'm nervous. You don't have
The notes are on the board right now.
that.
Oh, that. No. I was going to tell you. I'll give you a hint on this. There's one thing you need to know. Edward Jenner developed the vaccine for smallpox. Done! That's it. Edward Jenner developed the vaccine for smallpox.
So, like, out of all of that,
That's it. Everything else is plain text. Why?
Yes.
Because. What can you say? Go ahead. The reason is, the reason is,
Oh my God.
is
Being smart.
because every other thing you're going to pull information from has lots of useless words in it.
Yes.
It's a truth. You have to learn to develop your ability to get rid of the crap and see what's important. Because let's be honest, most of conversation is useless. There's a whole lot of stuff we do for political correctness or because society tells us we need to, when it's just, dude, I need to borrow this. You know, we're heavy. Let's get to the point. Now, the reason I want you to train that academically is because getting to the point is something most people are bad at. If you get good at it, you get job interviews. True story. Most people, whenever they go for writing a resume after they get out of college, goes to open Word, templates, resume, and they fill out the information. The thing is, though, it looks so bland and generic and still with too much information. I have people send me their resumes, friends of mine, to help make things concise, just because that's, as a historian, what I do. And I spend a lot of my time cutting out crap that no one cares about. Like, seriously, I'll have someone give me like a 3-page resume, and generally speaking, you want a page or less. If you have to go over a little tiny bit into 2 pages, fine, but no more than a page and a half. Because basically, your prospective employer wants to spend this much time looking at it. Education, experience, done. That's how long they look at it. If you haven't made your point in that time, you're lost. Besides, if anyone ever wants to go into business or sales, you have approximately, in the short, 30 seconds to get someone's attention. If you have their undivided attention, like I do, right now, you can maybe have 5 minutes to get your point across before people start like, what do I have for dinner tonight? I wonder how Mr. Muffins is doing. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe you have weird cat names. But anywho, my point though is being concise is a skill to be developed. If I spoon feed you everything, you won't learn it because you don't have to. So I write these big blocky bits of text, which, oh, by the way, is only actually 3 sentences. That's not even a paragraph. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Talk so big. One, it's writing, and two, because I'm trying to get a bunch of information across. Yeah.
Can you not like start highlighting or like it's a smart one, so can you not tell before you read that, like don't like
I can, but the problem is with the way my computer works, is it highlights it on that, not on that, which doesn't help you.
when you type it, can you just make that one a different color font or something?
Oh, I could, but I'm not going to.
Can you not put the rest and just have that
No, I'm just going to tell you what to do, and you do it. Life is hard, man. Yes. Everyone asks me that. I have no idea.
You should. I'm just kidding.
I wonder what
I say, they had to ask, I was like, you said the Kardashians. I was like, aren't they called the Kardashians? Isn't that their name? Like, no. Oh. Yeah, I don't really care. I'm just kidding. Honestly, here in another 10 years, no one will know who they are. So, don't care. Let's talk subject here. First bullet, our topic is Thomas Hobbes. Right here. Thomas Hobbes. Yes?
When we do the vocab, I've already written down a lot of this, so do I need to do it?
No.
Yeah, I think
That means you've done your work well. However, the also other side to that coin is that if I say something that's not what you've written, you might want to write that down.
I'm still looking at it, but most of it I've already written down.
Right, no, that means, because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, I'm having you write the notes before you take them.
Yeah.
So that means that you don't actually have to write that much in the long run. That's the whole idea. Hey! We understand the stratagem. Anybody get that reference? That's right.
Where's it from?
Doctor Who. Now, half of everything I say is a reference to something else. It just always makes me laugh when someone's like, I get it! It's like, yeah. There you go. Anyways, don't worry about it. Here's the thing, if you don't get half of what I say, that just means you're a cool person, because most everything I reference is nerdy and geeky. It's like, I don't know what that is, that means you're a cool person.
Go you.
Go. Right, so Thomas Hobbes, he wrote a book. In it, he talked about the social contract. Can someone tell me from your reading, what is social contract? Yes, over here. Hang on, find it.
Where does it say he wrote a book? Okay.
It doesn't. I'm just adding that.
Okay. And it's an agreement in which people created a government.
Yes. So basically, here's it in a nutshell. Hobbes, here's how I would write this. Thomas Hobbes, book. Underneath that bullet, dot. People, bad. Government, good.
Under Thomas Hobbes,
Yes.
people,
Government, good. Proposed the social contract. That's it. Now, you have to know what the social contract is, and as we established, it's an agreement we have to create society. Here's how it works. To create a government, we must give away certain rights. This is true for every government. If we don't do that, there is no government. We can do whatever we want, but that also means we can do whatever we want. We give up rights because we agree that doing so gives us the opportunity for a better life. So, for instance, anything that is illegal is a right we have given up by nature of us saying we can't do this anymore. Now, most of these are pretty obvious things we don't want to happen, such as murder, theft, rape, things like that.
Wait, so he proposed the social contract?
Yes, he said that this is the idea. Now, his thinking was we need the social contract because if we leave human beings to do whatever they want to do, they're going to do horrible things to each other. If there's no law keeping people from doing things, they're just going to do whatever they want, hurt and kill and all this type of stuff. Now, that's a pretty negative outlook on people, and I, for one, would disagree with that, but this is the idea. So in the social contract, we create a government by giving up rights. That's what it means. So, for example, murder, rape, death, all that stuff. But there's other things as well, such as listening to music. 1, is it legal to listen to music in the United States? Yes. 2, how loud can you listen to your music? As loud as you want, ... except when? Sure. Because there are things like, peace and quiet. There is a public nuisance thing. Like, for instance, I can listen to music really, really loud if I'm having like a party, but if I'm having that party at 4 a.m., probably someone's going to want me to stop. Yes? Basically, think about every person in the country having a bubble around them, and that's their personal rights. And we create laws where those bubbles touch or try to interrupt with each other. Basically, I can do whatever I want so long as I don't interfere with someone else's rights. That's the basis of the social contract. Now, here's the thing with that. Where that line is up to debate. This is where we have laws kind of go back and forth and things like that. For instance, can you use drugs?
Yes.
It depends. Keep in mind, it's not a matter of can you do it illegally, because we're not talking about can you break the law. Anyone can break the law. I'm saying in our legal system, what do we say is okay? You can use drugs that are prescribed to you by a doctor, legally. Some drugs you can buy just by going to the grocery store. You guys care to guess which drug most Americans are addicted to? Number one addiction? Caffeine. Of course it is. Caffeine is a drug, it is. Nicotine is a drug. Things like that. That's why we say this. when you can buy it. You guys can't go buy a 6-pack of beer right now, but you can when you turn 21. This is what we have said is where the rules break down. Because we don't care if you decide to drink a 6-pack. You can do that legally when you're 21 in your own home. No one's going to ask questions. In fact, a lot of people do it before they're 21 because no one knows better. However, if you decide to then get behind the wheel of a car, now we have problems. What has changed? When you put other people at risk. Your rights cannot infringe on someone else's rights. This is how we make this division. That makes sense? Sorry, I had a question over here a second ago when I was going on.
Wasn't it there used to be like cocaine and cola?
Yes and no. Was it cocaine? No. It was actually coca syrup, which is made from the coca leaf, which is what we make cocaine out of. If that makes any sense.
So do we still have that in Coke?
Coke used to be made up with, we have caffeine instead, so, but it used to be mixed up by a pharmacist. That's where it came from.
Did you get like high when you did?
No, it's no different than the feeling you would have from having a sugar rush or anything like that. There's mild painkillers in it.
So that's why
However,
it's called.
yeah, that's where it comes from. Now that being said, it's really not. It's kind of more like sensationalist history. In truth, it's no different than still eating poppy seed bagels. Poppy seeds are what you make opium out of, what you make heroin. You know, it's such a minor amount of it that it doesn't do anything.
Wait, so what, eat like a bunch of poppy seeds
Well,
and like control?
Because you can't eat that many poppy seed bagels before you just want to puke.
No, individual poppy seeds.
Oh, you just ate, well, that'd probably kill you. Yeah, not because of that, because of all kinds of other problems in terms of like a perforated stomach. No. You have to understand, to make a drug, you have to hyper-concentrate things. Okay, so you know concentration, right? Not like, I'm concentrating, but you take something and condense it to a more pure form. To make like heroin, you have to hyper-concentrate this stuff, make it so overpowering that it has this effect. It's sort of like how if you breathe in smoke from a cigarette, it's getting in your lungs and you have a nicotine buzz, but if you blow it at an insect, it kills it outright. Because to it, the concentration of nicotine is poisonous. But you're a bigger thing than it is, so it's not. Yeah.
So like, spicy nutmeg? You know how you can get like, whatever, high or something? I don't know. We're not afraid to go to the hospital because you like overdose on it. Like somebody dare eat like 4 spoons of it.
I'm guessing that has nothing to do with the drug and more to do with something else.
Okay, so like it's not dangerous to like maybe your.
Now, the best way I would describe it is anything that's poisonous or can kill you when enough of it. If you drink too much water, you'll die.
Yeah, I know that. I just found that
Yeah,
out.
because the water basically perforates all your cellular structure or something to that effect. I remember reading about it. Yeah, no, like I said, to drink it, that much of it, you would have to be intentionally doing something crazy, like drink 2 gallons of it, something like that. Yeah, drink 2 gallons in one go, though, is not too much. You wouldn't want to do that. Anyways, we're getting off topic. Back to the original point. This is where the laws come from. Now, John Locke, he wrote a book called Two Treatises. He said the opposite, that governments basically are there to protect natural rights, not the way around. So government exists to protect natural rights. Natural rights are things that everyone is born with inherently. No one can take them away. The government can, but only in very specific circumstances. For instance, things that are often chalked up to being natural rights are things like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. However, again, the government can take those things away from you if you commit a bad enough crime. They can put you in prison, taking away your freedom. They can execute you, taking away your life. Pursuit of happiness is always the weird one because it's really non-specific. That's why the Bill of Rights came out, to explain, well, this is what rights you actually have, and explains how you exactly go about pursuing happiness. You know what I mean? So natural rights came about to basically explain that, the people are the ones who hold the power. Everyone has these natural rights, and the only reason we give them up is to form government. In the 1700s, Baron de Montesquieu wrote The Spirit of the Law. And in it, he talked about the importance of the separation of powers in the government. Again, a very important concept, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with if you've ever studied any inkling of U.S. government. For instance, we have how many branches of government? 3. The
Legislative.
executive and judicial. And they all have powers over each other, yes? For instance, who is it that makes laws in this country? The legislative branch, sure. And who is it that signs them into law? Executive, the president does. And then who is it that determines whether or not they are actually legal? That's basically what they do. So Congress can make whatever law they want as long as it follows the constitutional boundaries set for it. And failing that, if it's not constitutional, they can rewrite the Constitution if enough people say, yes, that's what we want to do. Furthermore, the president can refuse to sign something into law, called a veto, but Congress can overrule him if enough people agree to it. Finally, the legislative branch can actually impeach the president, removing him from office. That's actually 2 separate things, impeach and then remove, which is their sanctions against him, but at an extreme majority. Plus, they have to then prove they did something illegal. Yeah?
Why don't they always wear those wigs? Those white wigs?
They don't, not in our country. They did back then, but that's because it actually has its tradition with the gentry, with the aristocracy, and the reason for that actually because have you guys ever tried styling hair? I know you guys probably have never done that before, but it's kind of hard. It's also because lice was a major problem, and so people would actually shave their heads and wear wigs so that it looked like they had hair, but they wouldn't have to worry about lice. They would powder the wigs to make certain that it killed living things. So it just became a symbol, in short. But anyways, yeah, we don't do that in this country. We use other symbols of power. You know? Well, I mean, that's the symbol of one political party, but I was talking more like, think of like a business suit, for instance. A suit is a symbol as much as anything. You know how like clothes mean things? What you wear says a lot about you. This is how we project power. In other countries, they use military uniforms. We don't do that anymore because we don't place so much, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't really value military strength as much in this country. We do, but it's not like we expect everybody in power to be a general or something like that. Generally, countries like that are because the general has taken over through force and is ruling the country. We don't do that. We rule through executives. It's business attire, that sort of thing. You'll notice that some countries, as they shift away from despotism and dictatorship, are starting to do that. So, moving on. Again, let's break it down. Yeah. Again, though, what's funny about this is this is one paragraph, which is verbose. So up here, the whole concept is about philosophs. You guys remember what that word means, philosoph? Did I get that? It means literally philosopher. Specifically, these are the people who are going to be the leaders of the new era we're talking about, which is the Enlightenment. Specifically, they are going to apply these ideas of thought process and philosophy and logic to government and these questions of how we form government. The most famous of these was a guy named Voltaire. He had a lot of different things about his real name was like Francois Marie Arouet, but his pen name was Voltaire because in his books, his plays, his things, he heavily criticized the corruption of the time. He also went to great length to talk about the importance of natural rights and specifically abolitionism. You guys know abolitionism, the abolition movement? To end slavery. He wanted to get rid of slavery. He saw it as an anathema to freedom in a country. How can one group of people be enslaved and another free? It doesn't make any logical sense. He and his brethren were the first folks to really talk about free rights amongst all people. Of course, he's going to have major problems with that. Because he's criticizing powerful people, he ends up in prison not once, but twice The third time they almost threw him into prison, he instead opted to be banished from France, or not from France, from England, excuse me. No. He was banished from France to England, beg your pardon. Because the prison he was in was one of the most infamous in French history, the Bastille. We'll talk about that later. So anywho, Voltaire is going to be this firebrand speaker, this guy who's talking out against the government and really making people question why it is that certain people have power. It scares the bejeeblies out of the elite, strong people. Because here's the thing, every person knows this. Every wealthy individual, every leader in this country knows that the only reason they have power is because we, the people, give it to them. If we decided to tomorrow have a widespread revolution, rose up in rebellion against the government, and it was across the entire country, who's going to stop us from overthrowing the government? You might say the military, but how many guys have family members in the military? They're going to shoot at you? No. The people in the military are the people. They're us. They would be with us. They're not going to go against us, not if everyone does it. If you have like 20 dudes, down somewhere, and they decide to rise up in rebellion, they're going to probably end up in the loony bin, possibly shot. But if the entire government does it, if the entire people, government's done. This is true for every country. It does not matter how advanced technology has become, the people hold all the power. It's just whether we decide to do it or not. That's the big issue, because we don't get all up in arms because somebody's done something in government we don't like. I mean, the rebellions are started by something much deeper than that. Yeah.
What exactly happened last year when our government did go down?
Oh, the government shut down. In the long reach, nothing. In the short reach, certain public parks and things like that were shut down because they couldn't pay the people to actually run them. Museums got to have curators. Museums got to have employees. You can't pay them, so they don't show up to work. That's basically it. Government shutdown is a strong word, basically. Really, what it just means is that there's no money right now, so we're stopping all of our basic services. A lot of the most important things kept going.
Isn't that when Obamacare happened?
No, that was years and years ago. Yeah, and that's actually a funny thing is too. We call it Obamacare, but he really didn't have much to do with it. Remember, the president can't create legislation. The legislation branch says that's what they do. It's called legislation. Legislature. They're the ones. Congress is the ones who put a law into motion. We just named it after the president because people don't understand the government very well. Like people will say the president does this. We do it all the time. It's not just President Obama. It's Bush for years. For instance, no, they had a good economy. The president really doesn't have much to do with that. It's sort of like saying he's commander-in-chief. He's the head of the military. He is, but that doesn't mean that, he runs the military. It's really, he kind of has the ability to take control of it in times of war, and the powers are very specific. It's just, again, government's complicated, but people try to minimalize it. Now, in fact, it's actually a logical fallacy called intentional minimalization. It's where, people try to say, well, your whole problem is just this one thing. No, problems are much more advanced than that. You can't just marginalize it to one thing and try to make it make sense. So, back out here. This is all about Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He is the most controversial philosopher. Whereas this was the most influential, he's the most controversial. Why? Because he stood for a few important points. First of all, he said the opposite of what Hobbes said. He said government bad, people good. In fact, he said that people would naturally be fine except government corrupts them. So we need a government by the people, of the people, for the people. Specifically, it needs to protect people's rights, and that is all. That's what it exists to do. In addition, he also believed in the redistribution of property. That's something that makes people very, very uncomfortable. Basically, here's what he was saying. There should be no rich, there should be no poor. Everyone should be equal. That means government should take all the wealth from the higher-ups and redistribute it to everybody else. That makes people very nervous. Anyways, But that's him in a nutshell. Now, the other group that was getting started and talking about their own rights were women. Got to understand, guys, women were second-class citizens. They did not have all the rights men did. In particular, the important question is going to be suffrage. You guys know what suffrage means? Yeah. Yeah. Suffrage is the right to vote. Now, at this point in history, not all men had the right to vote. In fact, it was pretty restricted. Women most certainly did not have the right to vote. And what we see, the biggest problem with women's rights, for a lot of it, is financial. Women weren't allowed to work. Men were expected to do all of that. In fact, there's a lot of our culture that plays into that. Even though that is reversing itself, and for the first time in really world history, at least in the United States and many of the more developed nations, women are making as much, if not more, than men, in some cases. You guys have probably heard that a woman makes 75 cents to every dollar a man makes. Have you heard that? Okay. What's interesting about that is that's actually not true. Not in the sense that, if, I had one job and a lady had the same job and I would be making more money than her. That's clear discrimination. That's illegal. Rather, what happens is, think about the types of jobs that men are encouraged to go into. Business, law, being doctors, things like that. What are women encouraged to go into? Nursing, teaching, basically jobs that get paid less than what men would get paid. It's comparing apples to oranges, not apples to apples, so that makes any sense. But what's interesting is that is reversing. Women are earning degrees more than men are. They're starting to get positions that men are, and we're starting to see this gap really shift. And that's fascinating, because this means women no longer need men, right? That's how you get equality. Because now we have to make decisions based upon our decisions, our wants, rather than needs. Consider this. See how it's changing dating. If I were to ask you guys, who is it that pays for a date? What would you say? Why? What does that mean? You have to be polite?
You want me, you better pay for my meal.
Yeah.
I think it's because, they expect women to clean their house, cook the room, raise their kids and stuff, so they should be. They have to provide the money. That's what they say the men do, and that's what the women do.
Sure, that's traditionally what we would say society is true.
So that's what they have to do.
The thing is that's shifting away from that. That's my point. Now women have money.
That's why you go Dutch.
Well, and that's becoming a thing. Exactly.
What? What'd you say?
Going Dutch. Guy pays for his stuff, girl pays for her stuff. That's becoming a thing. That did not exist back when I was in high school, let me tell you. This is something that is emerging with your all's generation. It's, by the way, not very common yet either. It's growing in popularity. It's not quite there yet. Let me ask you another question. How would you feel about a couple where the girl asked the guy if he wanted to get married?
That's awesome.
You go,
Why?
girl.
It's just not
Why?
Because
Because here's the thing is, think about this. Everything in society is an illusion. We invented it. If you strip away all of that and go to pure biology, men and women aren't terribly different. We're actually a lot more similar than we are different. But we make up a lot of things to say why we're different, and that over thousands of years have influenced the way we look at things to the point where we say, well, that's just natural. Guys just ask it. Why? If you break it down, there's no reason. It doesn't make someone less of a man if his significant other says, I love you, I want to be with you. You know what I mean? Why is that different if a guy says it? In fact, you should argue from a certain point of view that is making women less powerful than men. Why can't a woman decide who she wants to be with? Why has she got to wait for a guy to make that decision for her? You know what I mean? There's all kinds of fascinating stuff when it comes to gender equality. Now, that being said, even the most diehard feminists I've met still have in their mindset this idea, we still want difference. We don't want there to be completely gender blind. Because then there's this loss of identity of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man. It's utterly fascinating because it's all an illusion. You know what it means to be male or female? Your gender. That is it. Biology. There's nothing else inherent to it. But we make up these rules. It's fascinating. And a lot of what is changing now, our questioning of these rules, comes from the fact that women have gained the right to govern themselves based upon their purses, their economy, their own money. That's just awesome. I think it's fascinating. We talk a lot about that in sociology, by the way, so this is kind of a sociology thing right now. But again, suffrage is going to be a big part of that as well. Guys, you guys are aware that there are more women in the United States than there are men in the United States, yes? This is true across the world's population. So this means that if women have the right to vote, and they as a group vote together, they decide who's the president without men having a say every single time. Of course, that's a gross oversimplification because guys and girls are complicated things. You're not going to vote the same as any other girl just because you are female. That's an asinine assumption. It's like saying all black people will vote the same because they're all black. It's kind of racist, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, right? But people do it all the time. It's like, aren't we kind of people with different wants and needs and backgrounds? Why do you got to label us? You know what I mean? Yeah.
But the big thing about Obama was that everybody, like some of the people, I don't know how to, I don't know.
I think I know where you're going with this. People voted for him just because he's black.
American. I don't like the store, I don't know. But like whenever I was like, if I talked to them, they'd say that they were voting for Obama because they wanted to be able to do, like, to show that there could be another color, or like the same thing that women voted for the women.
I see what you're saying. And to some extent, people do that. However, they've done studies and they found that that's actually a very small percentage. The thing is that most people vote by whatever is going to influence them the most, who they think is best for the job. And the problem is, after President Bush, basically what happened is people really polarized. They shoved the edges. The centrists basically disappeared. So people went really liberal or really conservative. And you see this kind of war between conservatism and liberalism. They've done studies of this and show that people will go for somebody who is conservative, even if what they're voting for is against their best interest, because they label themselves as conservative, and this person says they're conservative. Keep in mind, think about, for instance, people who would benefit from new health care reforms or different types of things, and yet vote against it, even though it helps them because the idea of conservative. It's really fascinating. Again, from a sociological perspective, because we're so wrapped up in labels. You know what I mean? Labels identify us. They're part of what makes us us. But when we think about it, they're also incredibly limiting. You know what I mean? Again, going back to the whole point, you're going to vote this way because you're a woman. What does that mean? You know, that's basically taking everything you are and throwing it out the window and only focusing on one aspect which has nothing to do with your decisions. You know what I mean? The only things that will affect you decision-wise based on your gender is basic biology. And even that really won't influence much. Consider this. Women have to take off from their jobs to raise kids, yes or no? No. They have to take a certain period of time to recover from birth because it's kind of hard. But other than that, they go right back to their career. Traditionally, societally, we said, no, women have to stay home because it's a woman's job to raise kids. What does that mean? Is that implying that men are incapable of raising children? Because I find that insulting as hell. But this is what we always said. Again, by stigmatizing, by labeling, we limit ourselves. And again, we see this starting to change as women are saying, well, because I love this. I knew a guy who, he and his wife had decided they were going to have kids. And she was a very successful attorney, and he was this, I think he finished school, had a PhD in something. He was like, she makes a lot more money than I do, so I'm staying home with the kids. it was a purely financial decision, became a stay-at-home dad. You know? And this is something that's like, what? How can this be? Guys stay at home with girls? No, that's, this kind of craziness. Because again, when you get right down to it, it's all societal. It's an illusion. It's smoke and mirrors. And the earliest women's rights activists, like Germaine Desdale, Mary Wollstonecraft, all these folks are going to be fighting to be recognized as human beings, but also this is going to start shifting how we even view the question of gender. It's a fascinating study. It really is. I cannot tell you how many times my daughters have been called boys. And it's like, the stupid thing is, like, we'll have her in like a pink shirt and pink pants with like a little bow in her hair. What a cute young boy you are. I'm like, I do get it, because sometimes, like, because we decide to go gender neutral with all of our clothes, so it's like a lot of them like blue and green and things like that. And when they're like that, I kind of get it, because, she may not have a bow in her hair or something like that. But it's like, pink?
What do you do when they say that?
I just usually say, yeah, she's a really nice, whatever. Like, yeah, she gets it natural is something I like to say. Like, she's so cute, he's so cute. It's like, yeah, she gets it natural. But then what's funny is how often they keep, well, he's such a handsome young man. Yeah, she's a really cute girl. He's just so nice. It's like, that's because we generally assume male, which is hilarious. Yeah.
I've had that problem. Like, I've met a little girl and a girl. But you're so used to nowadays, like, whenever I see little boys, but like, a lot of times that the little, like, 3 age, like, usually have long hair, because, like, I don't know why. And, like, sometimes little girls with, like, little teens.
Oh, yeah, a lot of times they do. You get right down to it.
Yeah, like, every time I see a little girl, I'm like, and you're dressed in neutral colors, I always, like, I don't know why, it just looks like a little boy because it's face. And you can't really tell.
Yeah, they don't look different at all, because, again, what sets that aside? Puberty.
Yeah.
That's when they change. Otherwise, we're just going off of visual cues that we as a society have determined. For instance, why is it that girls have long hair, guys have short hair? Yeah, why? Fashion's funny that way.
And the nice thing is people always say it all to the boys.
That is also true.
Like, every time I bring
I
it up,
call it an
Guys, you want to see something funny? Is see how people refer to things that are inanimate objects. Well, generally what happens, ironically, is girls say he,
Kind
guys say
instructions that when the bell rings with anyone who has a shadow, please bring your visitor to the large conference room after the bell rings.
yeah, that's actually something I got to figure out here. I have no idea where I'm supposed to go when we're in the library. I'm a second referring right there. But guys, again, if you really think about it, gender is a fascinating